Hey Student Success, welcome to week 2 of the semester. I hope that your first week went really well, that you're getting adjusted to any online or face-to-face courses that you have, and that you're just kind of getting into the swing of maybe balancing your time with school, work, family, friends, whatever might be going on. So just as a quick reminder, I know we're in week 2, but you still might be getting a little used to this. When you log in, this Start Here section is your kind of home base. It's your intro to all of the information that you'll need for the course, including the syllabus, the welcome videos, any kind of resource links that you'll need, expectations, grading, all of that kind of information. So feel free to use that and check back into that as frequently as you need. And then, of course, under the lessons area is where all of the work is embedded within the weekly folders. So just as a reminder, if you were a late registration, the syllabus quiz at this point is going to be taken off. But for your week 1, if you were late to register or maybe you just didn't get to week 1, I do at the end of the semester, so I know we're talking about quite a bit down the road now, like May, but at the end of the semester, I do reopen earlier weeks. I tend to reopen weeks 1, 2, and 3 to allow anyone to make up points from early on in the semester when maybe you were just getting used to Blackboard or you were getting your schedule settled. So just kind of keep that in mind. If anyone has not been able to complete week 1, you will get a chance to make that up later on in the semester. So your student services assignment, that is due by the end of week 16. So again, I know that we're talking about a little bit far away from now, but if you do not find any workshops that work for you, because you waited too long, then it just goes in as a 0. So that's why I've encouraged in the welcome video and the week 1 video to make sure that you get logged into My Stark State. You go under the academic support tab, and you look at your student success workshops and you look at the list of workshops that are being offered. Some of them have already started. So you want to make sure that you look, even if it's not a workshop that you can't take until April, at least you can get registered for it. And so you can have that on your calendar ready to go. Okay, so these are the Lounge and the Muddy Point. Those are open all semester long. You can see week 1 was right there. So week 2 runs from January 24th through the 30th. And so you'll see week 2, we are in chapter 2. So in week 1, we were in chapter 1. We're transitioning into chapter 2 now. So this is very similar to week 1 in that we have one chapter, we have a discussion post, and we have an assignment. So your discussion post is firmly due on Wednesday this week. So you want to make sure you post your original response by Wednesday the 26th. And then responded to other classmates by Sunday. Again, response is not just 1 or 2 words. You're actually taking the time to think about and reflect on what that student has said, and you're making sure that you are giving them more than just a I agree, I disagree response. So post your original for week 2 attendance by Wednesday, responded to classmates by Sunday, and then you'll have one more assignment, the College Resources Digital Scavenger Hunt, and I'll talk about that here shortly. Another thing that is a little different in this week that you will not see in subsequent weeks is this video right here, how to use Starfish, okay? So Starfish is something the college has used for years now, but we're really starting to use it a little bit more frequently, and we really want to make sure students know how to use Starfish. So you're going to have this video embedded, which is a little meta here. We have a video embedded in a video, but you're going to have this video that before you are able to fully access your work in week 2, you're going to have to watch this video. So you'll click in here and it's going to open right up.
Hello, I'm Melanie.
Pause that. It's going to open right up into this video, and you can see it's rather short. It's just a little over 3 minutes, and so it's not a terribly long video, but you do want to make sure you watch that. And then when the video ends, that will go from mark reviewed to reviewed, and then you're going to be able to have access to this information down here. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about that, you watched that video. Again, it's a fairly quick video. All right, so inside our materials folder, we do have our link to our chapter 2 in our textbook, and then we have some slides that go along with chapter 2. If you recall from chapter 1, the slides for chapter 1 were rather lengthy, so I used the actual chapter itself as the lecture. The slides in this chapter are a little bit more manageable. So I'm going to lecture based off the slides and then just kind of briefly go through the textbook chapter itself. So first part of chapter 2 talks about staying motivated. Okay, so staying motivated, we're going to start taking a look here. How do we stay motivated? So you need to make sure that you have internal motivations, that intrinsic motivation. It's great to have extrinsic motivation, a good job, good grades, money, whatever that might be. But if you're not also motivated internally, those external motivations might not be as strong. So you want to make sure that you find what works for you in terms of motivation. So that is very closely related to goal setting. So you want to make sure that you set goals, both long and short term, that is going to help you reach obviously your long-term career or professional or personal goals. So that's a source of motivation. Okay, so since we're at the beginning of the semester, it's helpful to kind of start jotting down some goals. Now, you may have goals in mind already. Obviously, you're here, you have certain things you want to accomplish, but writing them down and then even sharing them with someone can help you stay a little bit more accountable to those goals. If you're able to share those with someone, you have kind of like an accountability partner, if you will. And so when you set your goals, you want to make sure that they fit these different requirements. So because we're in a new year even, being able to kind of use, a lot of people set goals at the beginning of the year. So if I'll just use a really simple, like a lot of people choose like weight loss as one of their goals. So if you have a goal of, I want to lose weight. Okay, great, but that doesn't really fit these requirements. How specific is that? How much weight do you want to lose? Can you measure that? Well, you can, but you just have to make sure you have a number in mind. Is it realistic? Well, if you want to lose 10 pounds, that's realistic, but you have to also be thinking about your time frame. I want to lose 10 pounds in a week. Not so realistic. I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months. A little bit more realistic, right? And then flexible. That's one thing that people don't seem to realize is that, just because you set a goal, that doesn't mean it's like firm 100% because you need to be able to adjust it. So let's do this with a grade point average. Let's say I want to get good grades this semester. Okay, that's a good goal in terms of to have, but it's not a very specific goal. So let's say I want to get a 3.5. That's a little bit more specific. Is that measurable? Yep, you can measure that as you go. How are you working toward that? Is it realistic? Well, you want to think about your time commitments, your other things going outside of class, your study skills, maybe how you did in previous academic experiences. Then is it flexible? So a couple weeks into the semester, maybe anatomy and physiology is just really kicking your tail a little bit more than you thought. And so you're going to give yourself a little bit of grace and say, okay, you know what? I think a 3.3 is going to be a little bit more realistic for me and achievable. And that's fine. It's totally fine to adjust your goals because if you're not thinking about them halfway through, odds are you're not really working toward them in the big picture. So you want to make sure that you're constantly adjusting and thinking about them. So it's okay to make them flexible. So this talks about the different types of goals, short term, meaning what it sounds like in the next couple weeks or month maybe, the midterm type goals in the next semester or year, long term, and then you're looking at several years down the road. And so we also want to think about process goals. If I want to get a 3.5 GPA, okay, that's my goal, but how am I going to get there? Am I going to carve out certain days or times of the week to study? Am I going to study with a group? Am I going to make appointments with my instructors? So what are the things I'm going to do to get to those goals? You also need to set goals at different levels. So making them realistic, but sometimes also a little bit out of reach, a little bit beyond your grasp, so that they're a little challenging to you, because that can help you with your motivation as well as really kind of push yourself so you're not getting bored or you're not getting stagnant in your work. So setting them at different levels. And here are some other ways to get motivated. It's really easy, I think, at the beginning of the semester to be motivated, right? Because it's new, it's exciting, it's fun. It's usually a few weeks in, like a midterm point, is when we start to kind of lose that motivation because we get really overwhelmed. And so what are some things we can do to stay motivated? Well, if you have a paper due in a month, break that up into small chunks. Really think about, okay, these few days I'm going to get my sources. In the next few days, I'm going to do an outline. After that, I'm going to do my introduction, breaking those up. Work on something for 5 minutes and then see if you won't stop after that time. Like set timers, set goals for each study session, give yourself rewards. Sometimes if I do something, I'll be like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and allow myself to watch an episode of something on Netflix. Or, I'm going to get coffee this morning or whatever it is, whatever works for you. And then seek help if you need it. We have so many resources at the college that you are paying for your education. And so you are paying for the services at the college. They're already included in your tuition. So you want to make sure you utilize them. I don't know very many people at all. I can't think of anyone really who's gone through and got a degree at any level without seeking help. All the way up through my doctorate, I still ask for help all the time because it's really important to know that people are there who have gone through the process ahead of you and can give you that guidance. So seek help when you need it. Some other suggestions, maybe work with other people, take breaks, really talk to yourself kindly and graciously, because, college is tough and you want to be positive. You want to give yourself that positive self-talk, have both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. A good job and a high salary is extrinsic, and that's great. But intrinsically, you also want to make yourself proud, or you want to make yourself kind of fulfilled. Those are those intrinsic things. Some other things for reviving motivation when you get halfway through the semester. Maybe reevaluate those goals. Kind of look to see, am I making progress? I like to use Post-it notes. So I can sometimes put Post-it notes up around my house and that have little goals on them that can remind, why am I doing the certain things that I'm doing? Prioritize. Sometimes we have to say no to other things because we're going to school or because we have a demanding job. So we want to prioritize. And some other things, again, keeping tabs on your motivation. Just be aware of yourself. Be cognizant. When is my motivation dragging? And then kind of go back and revisit, how can I ramp it up again? All right, so that's part of chapter 2. The other part of chapter 2 is organizing your space and time. And so this goes kind of right along with staying motivated, because you have to have these things put in place in order to make progress. So space, you need a space. Whether it's a table, whether it's a room, whether it's a location on campus, you need an academic space. I oftentimes have students say they study on their bed and then they end up falling asleep. And I'm like, well, yeah, because it's a comfortable space meant for sleeping, not for studying. So you need a dedicated academic space, wherever that might be. You also need to make sure that that space is aligned with your time. So if your study space is at a certain table in your home, you obviously don't want to study around dinner time because it's going to be very busy, very loud. So you want to make sure that it's both the location as well as the time. Sometimes that might mean really early in the morning or really late in the evening, whatever that might look like depending on your living situation. So you want to make sure that it meets a lot of these different needs. Is it organized? Is it academic? Can you prepare for interruptions there? Because sometimes that's going to happen depending on where you are and who you live with. Make sure that it's associated with studying. Again, if it's on your bed, that's associated with sleeping. If it's in a desk, that's a little bit more study associated. Some other things it talks about here is making sure you're trying not to multitask. We really, as humans, it's unavoidable almost. We do multitask. We have the TV on while we're preparing dinner, or we are looking at our phone while we're also listening to music, or whatever the case might be. But when we're talking about academics, we want to single task, because there's been a lot of research on this in the last 10 to 15 years coming out of MIT in particular. Actually has been shown that when we multitask academically, it actually takes us longer to do those things, and they are lesser quality work. So if we single task, the odds are it's going to take us a shorter amount of time and the quality is going to be higher. And this also talks about, again, is planning and coming up with that study space and those areas that you're going to need. And sometimes that might be telling someone that you live with, hey, during this block of time, I need access to, the spare bedroom, or whatever it might be. So making sure that you are setting up what you need to be focused. All right, so looking over here, here is the look at chapter 2. You can see, I'll kind of just breeze through. As chapter 1 had, there's a self-assessment. Where are you currently? What are your goals as it relates to motivation and organization? Where do you want to go? And some tips on what you're going to do. Time management is a big thing. It didn't focus on that a lot in the slides, but that's part of this motivation and organization, is making sure that your time is accounted for and planned for. What I would recommend that you do, if you haven't ever done this, is do a time analysis. So kind of like a spending analysis, but take a few days or even a week if you're able to, and just track your time and look and see, how am I spending my time? Oh my gosh, I'm spending 4 hours a day on my phone, or, I'm spending all this time driving back and forth. Some things are out of your control. You cannot control necessarily where you live and how far away that is to campus or to work, but you can control how much time you are socializing or napping or on your phone. You want to be aware of your time traps. So kind of analyzing your time, and it talks about this a little bit in this chapter as well, to see where your time goes. This next section talks about setting your goals, which we talked about in the first set of slides. So making sure that you know how to set some good goals. It goes over, the hallmarks of good goal setting. It even asks you to kind of practice that, set some goals, share these goals with someone. Think about prioritizing. How can you prioritize right now, especially the beginning of the semester? Get in the right mindset for your classwork. These are all going over kind of goal setting as well as just general success tips. This really talks about motivation, staying on track. Okay. What happens when you come across problems? This is a good kind of strategy that I often encourage my face-to-face students to think about as well. If your transportation breaks down, what are you going to do? If your childcare kind of falls through, what are you going to do? Think about those kind of things. And even though our class specifically is online, what happens if you lose internet access for a day or two? Or what if you have a tech issue? You want to think about those kind of things, because unfortunately, things keep chugging along. And so you want to have a backup for those kind of situations. Are you able to go to a public place if internet is down? Are you able to go to a friend's house and use their Wi-Fi? Whatever that might be. Okay, so it talks about that in this section. The next section goes over what we just finished a little bit ago, is organizing your space, making sure you have those dedicated times and places for studying. There's some people out there who say that you should not ever study at home because you tend to get more distracted. You're at home, the dryer goes off, you need to put a load of clothes away, or the dog barks, whatever the case is. You should always study at school. And I know that's not always realistic, so that's why it's really important to set a time and location for your studying. You also need to make sure, this talks about that multitasking and how sometimes multitasking or technology in general can really be a distraction. And so how can we navigate that? If you have any of these family and roommate issues, which I have 3 kids, so don't be surprised if you hear them kind of banging around upstairs, because I do a lot of my recording at night. So how do you navigate those kind of potential issues? This final section talks about organizing your time, which I touched a little bit on a couple pages ago. Maybe looking and seeing a time analysis. How is your time going? When you think of your new semester right now, since it's still early on, did you set up a class schedule, but did you also include a study schedule? How many hours per week are you going to study? So here is a time analysis example that I mentioned before. Looking to see how many hours you spend on each of these categories, and then where do you have some wiggle room? How can you build school into your life, or life around school, or however you want to look at that? So this goes through some time management tips, how you should view class time with study time. Oftentimes they say however many numbers of hours you're in class, you should be studying for 2 hours per time you're in class. So it just kind of depends. For me, it depends on each class. If I teach this class in person, it's an hour long. I don't think you need 2 hours every week for this class outside of the class time to study. But there are some classes where you'll need 2 or 4 or 6 hours a week. So you have to really plan for that and think about how much time do you have to dedicate to studying. So this whole section goes into this. There's also some time management strategies, talking about making sure you're breaking projects into small pieces, studying a little bit at a time, spacing your studying out, talking to yourself in a positive way, giving yourself some breaks, rewards, and then procrastination. Another thing that is very common, how do you battle procrastination? You can see it's a large section there, looking at planners and using those. So again, as I mentioned in your week 1 video, and I think as your introduction video as well, I really want you to spend time on what the sections that are going to be helpful to you. So maybe you're really great with time management, but you're not so great at goal setting, or vice versa. Spend more time really looking at that section. Okay, so that's the material for this week. So now let's go ahead and go into our assignment folder. and you have 2 assignments again. This should look familiar because this looks just like your chapter 1 discussion. Okay, so it's very similar to your chapter 1 discussion. So it says there are 6 topics below. You're going to choose 4 of the 6. So maybe goals, planning ahead, focus and motivation, and study space, or whatever 4 you want to choose. 4 of the 6. And complete each of the 2 statements next to them. So let's say you're talking about attitude. I have most difficulty maintaining a positive attitude at the following times. I can do the following things to adjust my attitude. So you want to fill out both of those blanks, if you will. So choose 4 of the 6 for your original response, and then you'll respond to 2 students by Sunday. As a reminder to post, you click into the forum right there. You hit create thread, and then you'll see that the post, the prompt right there is again, so you don't have to do lots of clicking back and forth. You'll put your subject, chapter 2 discussion, your name, whatever you want to put there, and then you'll type right in there and hit submit. Okay, so that is your first assignment for this week, is your chapter 2 discussion. Again, for week 2 attendance, you want to post by Wednesday. Respond to 2 classmates by Sunday. The response for 2 classmates helps earn the rest of the points for the assignment. Every discussion forum basically is graded 2 different ways. First, for attendance purposes, and then second, as an assignment, because you're getting credit for doing the assignment of the discussion post. And you get that by posting and responding to classmates. The second and final assignment you have for this week is your college resources digital scavenger hunt, which is going to be very similar to your Title IX quiz from last week. It is one of these where it's going to open up into its own window. Here we go. And you are going to see, there we go. It's taking its time. It's going to talk to you. It's going to walk you through a series of slides, and it's going to talk to you about the resources here on campus. So it's going to, give you some links that you can click on and visit, and you can keep those links up moving in the background if you like. But then it's going to ask you a series of questions. Where are certain things located and what is their purpose? You're going to let it go all the way to the very last slide, hit submit, or make sure that it's run through. And then this is an automatically graded assignment, which means it'll say in progress in the grade book until you've submitted it all the way. You want to give it a little bit of time. After about an hour or so, it should have copied over into Blackboard. And then I will be able to see it eventually on my end. Like I did with week 1, I will message you individually week 2 and let you know, hey, you're all finished. So you just keep an eye out for that. I like to let students know early on this semester that they're on the right track. So as a quick recap, in week 2, you want to make sure that you first watch this video about starfish. It's only about 3 minutes long, and that's going to give you access to the week 2 materials and assignments. You are posting in the chapter 2 discussion forum by Wednesday and responding to 2 classmates by Sunday, and then you are completing the college resources digital scavenger hunt by Sunday. Hope everyone has a great week. Until next time, bye.